Welcome to Roland's Travels, and today we're at Wingfield near Trowbridge, and we're going to take up our walk from the crossroads at Wingfield. So we're walking towards Trowbridge this way from the Wingfield crossroads. Behind the hedgerow, which you can't see very well at all, is a large house behind there. The house is Wingfield House, and building work began on it during the 18th century, and it was added to in the 19th century. In World War I it was used as a hospital, and between 1935 and 1938 it became a home for up to 30 boys as waifs and strays. The army took it on again in World War II, and then since then it's been private dwellings. It was turned into 4 homes following the army use. Now the name Wingfield possibly is derived from the field belonging to an early but unknown settler, a Saxon settler called something like Wine or Winer. At times it's been written as Winfield, Winefield, but also been referred to as Wingfield. Frequently appeared that way in the 19th century with the K in it, and the population's around 350. We're just going to take you to a couple of little lanes along here now. So the amount of footpaths is not too great, so you have to cross the road at various points. It's just on one side generally, if at all, so we'll cross over here. Looks like we have a nice new gate. For Woodruffs. Larch House behind that, and the lodge. This is Love's Lane. Very tropical here. This is a private lane, so we're not going to go too far up. Just show you these older cottages here on the end. There we go. And we'll go back to the next one now and just walk back along the road further towards Trowbridge. It's a very, very busy road into Trowbridge, this one. I'm coming from Bath or Frome, depending which way people decide to travel. I'll tell you more about the road system as well. So this is the private road to Trowell Farm down there. We won't go wandering around it. The road I'm on now is the old London to Wells road, or coaching road, and the road from the right to the left is from Bradford-on-Avon. Goes to Road, and then obviously you can connect to Frome. So down there is Pomeroy Lane, which leads to the farms and a few houses. So walking away from the crossroads from Bradford-on-Avon, going into the road direction, we'll next come to a pub, which you see is a little bit different to many pubs because of something that it possesses. So you'll find out about that when we get there. and another bright November morning, which is nice. I think there's more rain due tomorrow, certainly a lot yesterday, and we're in that sort of period of catching up from a dry summer by having lots of rain, so hopefully it's been good this morning to get out and be able to do a little bit of filming for you. So this is quite close to where I live, so quite easy just to pop out here. It's quite spread out, is the sort of parish of Wingfield. It goes out to almost Farley Castle, or Farley Hungerford Castle I should say, for accuracy purposes. And Stowford is just in the valley, just below the castle, which comes under the parish as well. So we'll get to the pub and then we'll show you that. Hello. How are you? Right, now we are approaching the poplars. And I think you could say the Poplars is a popular inn. Pardon the sort of play on words there. There is Shop Lane, but there isn't a shop. Welcome to the Poplars, the pub that has its own cricket ground. So now we come to Church Lane. I'm going to go down Church Lane, and obviously the name would indicate that is the church down here. It's at the end, so we're going to take a look at that, and an old farm. And before we do that, we'll pass the school as well, so I'll be able to tell you a little bit more about the school as we work our way down Church Lane. This is actually the longest habitable lane, if you like, in Wingfield. Pomeroy Lane's quite long, but very few houses on it till you get to the farm. Moore's Yard. This is where there was a timber yard run by the Moores family. And the houses were built in the year 2000. It's amazing how time flies, isn't it? Over 20 years old now already. Down here we have the older cottages from Church Lane, and the helicopter go over. Nice terrace there. The modern extension on the end, but it blends in nicely, doesn't it? Mortland cottages. (1905), the one on the end. It was called the Malt House, so maybe that's what it was back in the day. Drinking beer was quite an essential part of older life, to make sure your water was clean, really, because the alcohol would kill off the bugs. And so malt houses were necessary to malt the grain. It's quite an interesting process, and perhaps we'll have a look at that one day. I'll try and make a visit to a working malthouse when I can. So we're coming up to the school. And it is still in use, which is surprising for these days. Many of the village schools have been closed down. They get amalgamated into big ones. This is actually part of a school in Trowbridge, technically, under the administration of it. But there are children still here, which is nice. So it's close to a couple hundred years old, so as we get there we'll tell you about the school. Wingfield School was actually designed in 1849 and opened in 1852. It's actually built in a 16th century Gothic style, something obviously the designer wanted it to look like, and quite pleasant it is too. So we'll make our way past the parked cars and then go up to the rectory, the old rectory now, the church and the farmhouse at the end. After that we'll go back out onto the main road and take a look at Chapel Lane. Thank you. So we're making our way past the old rectory now and on up to the church. And we'll take a look at the things up here a moment. So we'll tell you more about the old rectory in a while. Going to Church of St Mary. And it's very rural out here, isn't it? Right on the end of Wingfield. This is where the village would have grown around originally. We have some very old tombs. There is a body buried beneath the porch. Looks like 1622. There's the other plaque I wanted to take a look at, just on the wall up here. So the Church of St Mary. This is really going back a long way. Church is 15th century, but just the west tower and the chancel arch survive from that period. It's been added to and altered since that time period. So the rest of it may be 17th century. It certainly had a makeover in 1732, and the nave was made with a Georgian round arch window. And in 1861 the transept was added. Now the memorial that is barely visible, that's believed to commemorate the Ballard family, who were rich clothiers. That's the one we can see there. Now Church Farm is made of rebel stone. It's gabled with stone mullioned windows dated to 1636. We have a nice pond over there with the ducks on it too. But the core of the building is a late 15th century one. So that's quite an old farm over there. So this is the old rectory, and I'll tell you more about that because it's got quite an interesting history. This former rectory was largely rebuilt for the Reverend Edward Spencer, who was there from 1797 to 1819. He held a school for up to 30 boys, including one Thomas de Quincey. He was an English essayist and critic, 1785 to 1859. He's famed for his Confessions of an English Opium Eater, a study of his addiction to opium and its psychological effects. So now we come to Chapel Lane. Now, I don't believe the chapel's around anymore as a building. That's Turnpike Cottage. We'll just go down a little way. The chapel did seat 150 according to records. It's a Baptist chapel from 1800. We'll just take a little walk down here. As in Church Lane, there's quite a few modern properties amongst the older ones. And then there's a few properties down there which we won't go all the way down to the private properties, so we'll go back to the main road. So I hope you've enjoyed the little trip around this very small village of Wingfield. A lot of history around here, despite it being very small. When you start digging into things, there's much you can find. I'll tag in throughout the video things where I haven't mentioned whilst walking around. I'll tag some extra things in so you can hear about those. And also at rolandmillward.com there'll be a more in-depth article about Wingfield. There are quite a few footpaths around here and bridleways, so you're able to walk around. Got to be careful on the main roads because there aren't any footpaths apart through some parts of the village. So thanks for joining me. Make sure you do subscribe to the channel before you go, and we'll see you in a future video.